We are back, and it's episode 2.
The last episode was really good. I got a really good understanding of extreme control, Isaac. The border example was just fantastic. I really understood it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Technology doesn't have to bust your brain just so you understand the basics. The Welcome series is all about this. It's our mission to make our technology easy for anyone, everyone to understand, and interesting for even those who do understand and who might want a refresher.
So what are we going to be covering in this episode, Isaac?
There's a lot of stuff. I'm going to unpack that trip to Geneva a little bit more, because it's really important to understand where the job of NAC or extreme control actually starts in this entire process. So we're going to discuss the role of policy. We'll cover the 3 areas that extreme control focuses on, which is visibility, security, and automation. We'll talk about the general process that you would implement to expose those hidden or unknown devices sitting on your network. We'll cover the requirements you need to get this software up and running. We'll look at the licensing of the product. A really important section will be where this product actually fits into an enterprise network. And then we'll take users through the examination process,
that's
correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Isaac.
Finally, I'll talk briefly about the professional program for those who are interested in going further and becoming proficient in this fantastic technology.
So, are you guys ready? Are you ready, Isaac?
Ready as I'll ever be. Let's go. In the previous episode, we covered quite a lot of information, certainly from an introductory point of view, and I think the border guard story really clicked with our viewers. We finished the episode by considering the topic of what size network is extreme control really suited for, and we concluded that that's really the wrong question to ask. The correct question to ask is, how sensitive is the data sitting on your network, and would a breach be detrimental to you and your business? If you answered in the affirmative, then you need to stay tuned, because extreme control might just be the enterprise security tool you are looking for. So in that first episode, I used the example of the border guard in Geneva to illustrate one of the aspects of NAC. But NAC actually starts way before that, because to arrive in Geneva, I needed to get on a plane. And to get on a plane, I need a ticket. So what's that ticketing process like then? Well, I obviously start by going online and searching for a flight to Geneva from my origin. I might have a choice of airline to fly with, perhaps BA, maybe Swiss, whoever. But it's not quite like ordering a burger at a burger joint, is it? Your ticket must be for a specific flight at a specific time, a specific terminal at a specific airport, and most importantly, for a specific, very specific person. The airline is going to issue me with a unique reference number. Now, here's the important thing. The airline in this example is Extreme Control Instance, the NAC instance. That number they give you, that unique reference number, is not an open-ended number. Once you get your ticket printed, you can't take the ticket and say, well, I'd like to give it, to, I don't know, the person who washed my car, for example. And I'm going to tell them that they can use it next year from any airport that they want. That's not going to happen, baby. That ticket is tied to an identity. In the UK, that would take the form of a driver's license or a passport, as the UK doesn't have official ID documents. In Europe, in South Africa, where I come from, there are ID documents to prove who you are. The authentication document can't be anything you like either. You can't rock up with your Instagram account and say, that's me. You can't write your own identification document or arrive with a letter from your mother saying, I gave birth to this chap. This is proof, so please let him on the plane. I mean, It doesn't work like that. You can't arrive at the airport with a library card as your ID. The authentication would need to be a document that's issued by a recognized authority. And in the case of international travel, an even higher form of identification issued by the government, a passport. Your passport for international travel and maybe a driving license would suffice to confirm your identity for local flights, local travel. That reference number, or unique number, is tied to everything about your flight and identity. Unique information. Notice how that unique reference number is made up of different types of information, just like the border guard, who needs to check all the criteria before they let you in. When you get to the airport, you go through, security checks and passport control. Passport control folk, they don't really care about your ticket. They just want to stamp your passport as proof that you left the country. But when you finally get to the boarding gate, the person or the control person at the boarding gate will ask to see your ticket with that reference number. And then they will match it to the passport name and your likeness to the photo or ID. And if the two match, guess what? You're allowed to get on the plane. And if they don't, you're about to get a ticket nowhere really quick. So you need to be at the right gate, at the right time, at the right terminal, right airport, and your name and face need to match that on the passport. If you fly locally, it's very similar, but you don't need a passport as a form of identification. So that is where NAC actually starts coming into play. So how exactly does NAC work? Well, it works by examining the devices wanting to join the network before it allows them in, before it grants them access. If you're not technically network aware, you might ask, well, how does it know that the device wants to join a network? I'm really glad you asked that. Lots of people ask that very question. Every device that wants to join a network needs to identify itself using a unique address. We call a MAC address. Nothing to do with the Apple company, but it looks something like what you see on screen, a 12-digit combination of numbers and letters set out in pairs. Look, to be technically accurate, these are hexadecimal numbers. And there's hidden information in those numbers. The first 6 digits you see are referred to as the OUI, or Organizationally Unique Identifier. And we'll tell you what company made the device. So immediately you'll start to get an idea whether you're looking at a PlayStation or a Nintendo or something made by Apple. This is just the start of the process. So NAC, ExtremeControl, verifies this device identity. It looks at the operating system, the antivirus, the security patches. If a device meets the necessary requirements, it's granted access to the network. Otherwise, it may be denied access or given restricted access until it meets the security standards. Now, not all devices are computers, right? There are a ton of devices out there known as headless devices that don't look or smell or taste like a computer, but they need to talk to a network. Sensors, IoT devices, for example, watches. NAC needs to identify them all. If you get a green light on all the checks, you get matched up or placed into the correct and designated VLAN. Or if you are a customer of our fabric technology, an ISID. We've all flown with budget airlines, right? So if you fly with a budget airline, then you have a lot of add-ons that you can add to your ticket purchase. Hand luggage, luggage that goes in the hold, priority boarding, a seat, tea, coffee, sugar, sweetener, wash closet access. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they start charging for the type of shoes you wear, or if you come on board with an iPad instead of a mobile device, right? So why am I talking about low-cost airlines in a series of ExtremeControl? Because this is the best way to describe control policy. You see, authentication gets you on the plane, but it's the policy which determines how you are treated and what you can do on the way to the plane and on the plane. If you have a superior policy, then that might allow you to take 2 bags of 23 kilos each, plus 1 carry-on case, plus 1 laptop bag. And you are first to board. That's what we would call in computing terms an allow all policy, the one that we all love. If you fly on some really cheap airlines, the standard policy is really restricted. And of course, if you arrive with a fake ticket, then the policy simply says, allow nothing, deny all, and you're not getting on the plane. So firstly, the authentication, and then the authorization, or sometimes only the authentication. You could say this process is all about knowing me, or knowing who I am. So a customer calls and says, I think I have devices on my network that I know nothing about. Can you help? How do you go about reducing their mental tax and giving them peace of mind? Once you install ExtremeControl, you put it into this learning mode. You push the configuration into the switches and the radio server, which is a server that handles authentication. You then enable authentication on the switch ports and you set the action to do nothing. So ExtremeControl just basically sits there and listens. It learns. A new device powers up, Control sees its IP address, its MAC address, and it becomes aware of it, and it gets placed into a statically configured VLAN. So when you see this device in SiteEngine, by the way, I discussed SiteEngine in another Welcome Series chapter, and it's the right time to say that to run Extreme, you need to have an instance of SiteEngine running, right, to install it. So when you see this device appear in SiteEngine, you then just right-click on it and add it to a group. So this moves this device to the device group. So now when you've added all the devices to a group, then you say, okay, let's authenticate and give the VLAN back. So if you do everything right for the known devices, then theoretically, there should be no change in behavior, no impact on your network. But the VLAN should now be mapped automatically. But it will still be the same as a static configuration. Normally, at the end of a migration pass, you then change a fallback rule in ExtremeControl from allow all, the initial one, to block everything, deny all. So at this point, when you think you've covered all the devices and production is running and everybody is happy, no one's swearing at you, everybody can communicate, what's left over we will block. Of course, when that happens, slowly people start noting technologies that stop working, etc. And then that obviously points to the devices that are unknown but critical. At that point, you can identify the device and the MAC address, and of course, add it to the correct group of devices so that the correct policy can apply to it. Once that's done, then you can start to move new gear, new switches, new access points into the network, where you don't have to do any more manual configuration at all, as it will be done automatically by ExtremeControl. This is the visibility side of the equation that we spoke about in the beginning. The second important offering ExtremeControl gives you is automation. You will always have the choice to configure a port for a device manually, right? It's perfectly legit to do so in some circumstances. We mentioned small companies before. If you're a really small company, then of course this is a completely normal behavior. But if you consider a medium to large enterprise business, then you quickly start to understand that this is a model that simply cannot scale, because people move around all the time and resources move around all the time. Think about a hospital, for example. If you have an IT team, you want to move as many of these manual tasks that take up valuable time into an automated process or system which avoids common mistakes. but more fundamentally allows your IT team to get on and do more urgent or pressing network management tasks. Untrusted devices or systems are automatically going to be placed into untrusted VLANs, and trusted devices are always going to be placed into trusted VLANs. You're never going to swap those around. Control won't let you do that. And the magic thing is, no matter where an untrusted device tries to connect to the network, the behavior will stay exactly the same. Wired or wireless, it's the same. So in every company, large or small, there's always that one person, right, who has just enough skill to be helpful when you can't be on site and something goes wrong. They're often called the tech-savvy person, and they're the person that when you install ExtremeControl onto their network and ask them to just unplug the yellow cable and plug it into another port, they argue with you. And if they did that, this thing would no longer work. Well, this is what we mean when we refer to the fact that control doesn't care where the device or cable is plugged into. If it's untrusted, it's placed into the untrusted VLAN for untrusted devices, where the policy is going to restrict what it can see or do. If you end up with a device that you can't identify at all using the system, then the device falls into a bucket. Think of it as a bucket called the fallback rule. In this particular rule, you have a few choices. You can quarantine it, so there's no communication at all. You can move it into a quarantined VLAN, meaning that you can communicate inside but not outside the VLAN. Or alternatively, a semi-trusted device where you allow it to register to a management system or a domain controller or similar, but you can't do much more. You always have a lot of options. In the end, either someone will come knocking on your door telling you some or other system is not working, or you've eliminated a potentially rogue device on your network that should never have been there in the first place. So how do we go about implementing ExtremeControl? Well, you will need a combination of our solutions, right? As I mentioned earlier, both Site Engine as well as ExtremeControl. I've previously recorded a welcome series on Site Engine that you're welcome to watch, and we encourage you to watch, and that you can find on YouTube. It's really fantastic. It's a fantastic product to manage devices on your network, and the best thing about it is it doesn't care whether those devices are Extreme devices or from another network vendor. It's completely agnostic. It will manage all of them. Once you've got Site Engine up and running, then you need ExtremeControl, which is purchased as an image, either a VMware or hypervisor. The next thing you need to purchase is the licensing for Site Engine, which is one pilot license for Site Engine itself and a pilot license for every device you manage with Site Engine. So if you manage 10 devices with Site Engine, you need 11 licenses. Make sense? One for Site Engine itself and one for each of the 10 devices. For control, you pay for the endpoints that you want to protect and have devices authenticate against, with the smallest license pack being for 1,000 devices and then scaling up. Let's look at an example. If you had 50 48 port switches and 100 APs on your network, then you'd need to purchase 151 pilot licenses for management with Site Engine, and a pack of endpoint licenses to cover around 2,400 endpoints, which means that you would basically get coverage on every single switch port. And you would do that by buying 3 packs of 1,000 licenses, for example. From a maturity and stability point of view, ExtremeControl is rock solid. It's been around the block. It's seen so many improvements over its lifetime. It's not necessarily easy to set up and to get going, but once it's going, it's absolutely solid. It has to be, right? If the NAC is down, everything is down. Performance in ExtremeControl is really critical, absolutely critical. We always recommend that a customer have 2 instances of ExtremeControl running at the same time for redundancy purposes. That doesn't mean they need double licenses, for example. Don't panic, I saw that look. A wireless device is well able to connect to 2 ExtremeControl instances. But because it's a single MAC address, your mobile phone, your watch, whatever it is connecting, it's not registering twice in licensed land. It's important to remember that a single site engine instance can run up to 32 instances of ExtremeControl. Remember, site engine is about management, and ExtremeControl doesn't need to be connected to site engine for it to work properly. It can be disconnected for a while without panicking. But if the NAC system is down, no one gets access to the network. Good or bad? When it comes to training, Extreme Networks offers professional training on both site engine and ExtremeControl for those who really want to deep dive and master all of the nuances and all of the features of this great solution. To learn about our training offerings, you can always just send an email to learn@extremenetworks.com, and if you point your phone at this QR code on screen, your mail application will automatically open an email with the address I mentioned. Or you can do a search on our website for ExtremeControl or for ExtremeControl for Extreme Cloud IQ Site Engine. So, in the big picture, where does NAC fit into a network? ExtremeControl, where does it fit? Well, in previous Welcome Series chapters, we've looked at Extreme Cloud IQ, we've looked at Fabric Connect, we've looked at switching, we've looked at Site Engine, and they all play a role in providing customers with a fantastic network solution from both a hardware and a software point of view, end to end. Fabric, well, it's an absolute beast of an operating system to run on switches, and I honestly urge you to look at its capabilities. It's insane. But when it comes to ExtremeControl, ExtremeControl is filling a vulnerability that you're hopefully aware of now, a hole that needs to be plugged. And ExtremeControl is the tool that is going to reduce your mental tax, the mental tax and anxiety of not knowing and not being in total control of every device that connects or tries to connect to your network. Just imagine yourself as a network engineer, network manager, network admin, or even the money guy. Imagine having the ability to sleep well, even when you know that there are contractors working in the offices late into the night. Happy days. Thank you for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed these 2 episodes, and remember, we have professional training available for ExtremeControl when you're ready to deploy and start taking back control, extreme control of your network. Over to you, Louise.
So, the exam. If you're new to Extreme Networks, there's some simple steps that you need to take. So first, create a portal account. Scan the QR code, which is on the screen now, and it will take you straight to the registration page. Once you've registered, you'll then be able to access the Extreme Dojo, and that's where you can book all your training classes and take your certification exams. You now need to access the relevant Welcome Series exam, so scan the QR code on the screen and this will take you directly to it. Finally, you're ready to take the exam, but remember to check the exam details. So there you'll find out how long you have to take the exam, how many questions there are, and what the pass mark is. And that's it. Once you've completed the exam, then you're certified, and you'll also receive your badge from Credly to recognise your achievements. If you've got any questions or you need some tips on your studies, email learn@extremenetworks.com. Good luck!
If you haven't already, be sure to follow us on LinkedIn,
where we provide information on training, the latest news and updates.
but most importantly,
Have fun! So scan the QR code.